Well, good morning. Welcome to the Sunday morning Dr. Peter's Science Mind class. And as you can tell, she's not here. I am. I'm Reverend Karen Fry. I'm happy to see you all this morning, both in person and online. So, Dr. Peter's on vacation, and I get the joy and the pleasure of being with you this morning. And I'm embodying her today. We've talked about today's conversation. So let's just get right to it. We are on page 79. I know that Ryan has put this in the chat for you, but we are sorry. Let me get this mic steady. Okay. We're on page 79 in the chapter Mind, the Greatest Discovery, and we're going to talk about the threefold nature of God. So, what is Ernest Holmes saying about this? Well, he says, we find then, as we study our own being, we begin to deduce what the nature of God or the universal being is. There is no way we can know God except by studying humankind or a person. I'm doing gender neutral language, or I might even flip the switch this morning. See if you catch on. Someone may say, God reveals herself. Yes, we think God reveals herself to us, but only by revealing herself through us. We know about God only as we judge what God must be, by studying the nature of those things which we can somewhat analyze, plus that intuitive feeling we have of eternal varieties. He says verities. I call them varieties. So the big thing is he's talking about to study our own being, to study our own nature. And that when we study our own nature, to deduce the nature of the divine, the universal being, then that brings us into a new awareness, a new consciousness, a new way of being in life and working with how life works and the reality of life. So that's not usually the way that we approach it, is it? To study our own being, to know about God. Usually we're trying to study God to understand us. And we tend to, for the most part, and many of us growing up in maybe a particular kind of religion, we tend to anthropomorphize God. We tend to think of God as this big, intelligent being in the clouds, right, and in heaven. And so we tend to also put on God what we put on us because we've anthropomorphized it. We put feelings on it, dramas, the way we think about things. So that's how God all of a sudden becomes judgmental, because we've put in place the feelings of judgment that we have on God. So now we have a big God that's judging in the sky and judging us, right? So we project our thoughts, our feelings onto the divine, which circles back to projecting back on us. So think of that Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible God as this super person, this being in the sky, and how we have a tendency to do that. So when Ernest Holmes is talking about to study the nature of our own being, it's actually coming out of psychology. And so he's looking at this from psychology. And when we study the nature, the way in which our conscious mind and our subconscious mind work to create our own experience, now we're approaching it from an entirely different perspective. So instead of looking at our personality, it's looking at the way in which we operate as human beings inside ourselves. And that's sort of the key. Not looking at how we operate as human beings outside ourselves. How do we operate as human beings inside ourselves and not in relationship to others? Okay, so as we study our own being, we begin to deduce what the nature of God or the universal being is. So as we study ourselves and our own being, right? And inside ourselves rather than in relationship to other, then when we begin to do that, we're beginning to study first cause.
This is dense.
This is dense. I was about to ask, hey, Ryan, have I lost anyone yet? This is dense. But it's when we break this down, or when Dr. Petra, who I'm channeling, breaks this down, you know, it's really about we're studying first cause because, and here's the key, as we've heard before, we are made in the image and likeness of it. So we're studying ourselves from the inside, not from the outside, and we're not anthropomorphizing some big thing in the sky, some superpower human being. You know, we're not calling it a man. We're not calling it, you know, a white bearded man in the fluffy clouds. We're not doing any of that. We're actually studying ourselves from the inside. And when we begin to do that, we're actually starting to study first cause, because we're made in the image and likeness of it. And because the key is God isn't made in the image and likeness of ourselves. Drop the mic. Stop. It's not.
That's hilarious, really.
God isn't made in our image and likeness, so again, it is hilarious. So we don't have to subscribe certain things to God, like judgment, like compassion, like forgiveness, to God. Because they're actually humans' expressions of the quality of life as humans. So, you know, we've got all this stuff that we've projected onto God because of our humanness, and we're made in the image and likeness of it, right? So, we're flipping the switch. And what he's saying with this one little sentence is for us to start to flip the switch that we're made in the image and likeness of life itself. Spirit, God, the universal presence, the divine oceanic substance, whatever we choose to call it. We're made in that image and likeness. So we can just stop and say, good morning, Ryan. Do you want to say how we can engage with this conversation this morning? Because I will be throwing some questions out for everybody to think about.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you, and good morning to you, Reverend Karen. I gone ahead and muted you. Can you move your microphone a little bit up? And as you're doing that, I just want to say welcome to everybody here in the room. Don't be afraid to wave at me. I'm looking at you right here in the room. Hey, Ross. Thank you, Willie. And all of those that are online here with us via Zoom, welcome and good morning to you as well, too. I am waving at you even though you can't see me, and I hope that you guys will wave back. You can use the raise your hand icon. Also, if you have a question, we'd love to hear from you, and you can use that same raise your hand icon, and I can call you into the room. And for those who are visiting us all over the world on Facebook land, we really appreciate you joining us here today as well. And we'd love to hear from you, so go ahead and put your questions and comments inside of the chat, and I can bring those into the room as well. And as always, I just like to remind folks who put their questions and comment inside of the chat that I do keep those anonymous so we can continue to have a safe container of spiritual growth. And by the by, for those here in the room, because I totally skipped over you because you were raising your hand at me, If you'd like to participate, you can raise your hand again, and myself or the iconic Richard here to my right will help you with a microphone. So I do want to poll the folks here in the room first. Is there anybody who has any questions, comments?
One simple comment.
Okay, let's come to you, Ross. Go ahead.
I'm Ross. Reverend Karen, when you said, that's it, we have created, as obvious as it is, human beings created God in our image as opposed to the exact opposite. And I know I've seen that for my entire life and never quite got the idea. It's just hilarious and preposterous.
I agree. I fully agree. So before I continue, I want to thank Willie, who helped me not only with my mic, but she came in early and did my hair here at the center for me. So she's my hairdresser, and my hair looks good thanks to Willie. And all things are possible as God with Willie in combo, because I couldn't hold a roll brush or a hair dryer in both hands this morning. So thank you. She helped me with my hair and my mic this morning. So, all right, yeah. So let's just continue to, this is such a significantly important way of, like I said, flipping the switch, of turning it on its head of what is totally done. So again, when we're made in the image of likeness of life itself, that's very different than making God in the image and likeness of us, right? And so when we study, as Holmes is inviting us to study in the way we operate, not in how we feel, but in the way we operate. Let's look at our body, okay? We have a body, mind, spirit, but let's just look at our physical body, the form, and the way it operates. There's a lot about our body that automatically operates. We don't have to think about it. It just works all the time. It's impersonal to us. Think of our heartbeat and how it operates. You weren't thinking about your heartbeat until 5 seconds ago. Now you're thinking about the heartbeat, but you yourself are not making it operate. You don't have to, focus on it operating all the time, but yet it is, right? In fact, we're so abundantly blessed with heartbeats. I use this as an example of the abundance of life itself right here in my own individualized body, that if we're at 60 to 70 beats per minute, mine's a little elevated because I'm excited to be back with my beloved community, and I drank some coffee this morning. But let's just say 60 to 70 beats per minute, and we live on the average about 70 is our age, then we have automatically had 2 billion heartbeats. And it's automatic. It just is. We don't have to think about it, right? And our lungs, let's think about our lungs. Right now, take a breath. Well, we thought about it. But before that, our lungs just know how to breathe. It just is. Sort of impersonal and automatic, isn't it? Like the universal law. It's just the way the body works. It's just the way, it's nothing, quote, special about it. And the paradox is, it's extremely special, right? So automatic things, we can even regulate ourselves. We can. So the yogis that just meditate all the time, they can regulate their body temperature so much that they're really hot in snow, for example. So they can. And those are the things that are completely choice-based. So we also have a lot of things that are completely choice-based. Like, what are our thoughts? We can choose what we're thinking. What are we believing? What are we focused on? So this is a way to approach it where our conscious and subconscious mind work together. And that's how it creates the experience of our reality. This is the way it works. This is the way the human being's life works, right? And when we actually begin to understand this, it starts to create a lot of our reality in a very different way. Just like understanding, flipping this switch, and studying the way that our own being works, we begin to understand life itself more, right? So made in the image and likeness. Let's talk about that. Well, let me just stop here and say, how does it feel and what comes up for you after this, knowing that there's no deity, that there's no big superpower in the sky? What, in the room and online, see, what are your thoughts about that? To know that there's not some deity. How does that change or impact your thinking, your life, your reality? A small question for Sunday morning.
I don't like it. First, I don't like it. Because it puts me at ultimate responsibility for my own life.
Amen, hallelujah. Of course you don't like it.
And 3 weeks ago, when it all smashed me, and all my wonderful hallucinations went away, I said it last week, I felt afraid ever since. No one's looking out for me except this. This has done a pretty fair job. In that I'm here.
Well, they can't see online. He said this is in his body, or himself.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just...
And I felt this kind of nagging fear I never felt before, because I always thought I was being taken care of by whatever.
A deity.
God, Creator, Higher Self, Holy Spirit, something. And then I came to, they're not taking care of me. And it's an odd sensation to feel more personally powerful and at the same time afraid.
So you're living in the both and. You're living in the both and of I'm now more personally powerful and I'm afraid. And
I'd call it accountable and responsible. Mm-hmm. I don't know how powerful that feels, but it.
And what are you really accountable and responsible ultimately for, Ross?
The expression of me in this lifetime. First of all, my existence, and then the expression of what's inside of me in this life.
And what is the root of that can impact and grow and unfold that expression? Now that you've had this aha 3 weeks ago that there is not a deity, I'm just playing and poking right now. So ultimately, what do you think that the root of responsibility, where does it lie?
I'm not sure.
Ernest Holmes would say in your thoughts and what you focus on.
Well, that has to be true.
So that yes, I'm responsible, and I am responsible for my thoughts, what I hold, my beliefs, what I focus on, flipping the switch, have the negative thought, not just suppress it. So these are just examples. Not merely suppress it, but to replace it with the opposite, that which I want to be the reality of my life. That's really where it wipes it out on the chalkboard with an eraser, not just I'm not going to have that negative thought. No, actually, I had the negative thought. I'm going to replace it. So when you were speaking about the deity and what came up for me when you said this, and now I have this sense of responsibility, empowerment, and I'm afraid because I thought I was really taken care of. Let's go back. How does life not take care of itself? How does it not?
Bad things happen to people.
Bad things do happen to people, but is that life not taking care of itself?
It feels more complicated than that. What we have is, we're all here alive, and the chances of us coming into existence are almost zero, as individuals. And we see our species has survived for a long time under really perilous circumstances. So the species goes on because the species is tough, but individual people are weak and vulnerable. And I feel like I'm in the weak and vulnerable right now.
I get that. I understand that. And what I'm inviting is there's a different way of possibly holding this awareness and aha that you've had in the past 3 weeks. and that is life must care for itself, or there would be no thing. Non-existence, nothing, like no thing. And so, just let's go back to my heartbeat, okay? As the body, as an example, there are things about my body that go on automatically, but there are things that I definitely am at choice and control. I'm at choice to make a fist right now, or to open my hand. That doesn't happen automatically, right? There's many things that I'm like close hand, open hand, right? Dance, do squats, whatever. And so life itself is supporting itself, always, at all times, simultaneously. It's omnipresent. So actually, you've always been supported. You still are supported. What's new is the awareness of the responsibility that now I know I'm causal, and so are my thoughts.
I've had a couple of life experiences where I thought a miracle occurred to save my life. And I attributed it to some other entity. And as I look back on it from this new place, I say, a part of my brain took over and preserved me. I'm going, that's pretty cool, actually.
It is.
Because it was really an internal experience that saved me from really death.
It is really cool.
And I think that's the expression that you're talking about.
And it's going on all the time.
Oh, clearly.
And yes, I mean, we can look at the globality of all of this. There are individualized expressions winking in and out of existence all the time. Thank goodness. We got 9 billion expressions right now at any given moment. Decade or so ago, how many billions was it? A lot less. I mean, the cells of my body wink in and out and regenerate every 9 to 12 months. This cell in this body, the trillions of them, never stay the same. They're winking in and out. This is just the way life works, right? So there are things that happen to people. We lose our loved ones, all that, the individualized expressions. Doesn't mean that it's not a big deal and we miss them and we don't grieve. But it's the way life works. And if we look at it in the wholeness of life, it's coming in and out of existence of itself all the time. But it never loses itself. It never loses its expression. It never loses its wholeness. I feel like we've gone down a whole new path, but it's still the same thing. Shauna, and I love that you're having so many ahas and awarenesses.
We also have somebody online, so we'll go to Shauna,
Okay.
and then we'll come to Anita here online.
Great. Shauna.
Well, I guess the part of this discussion that I'd like to add is the one I am, right? We're talking about, individual bodies. But I like to think about the ocean and that I'm a droplet in the ocean. So we're talking as if we're all alone. Or I'm hearing us speak as if we're suddenly all alone. And I think in the absence of a deity, we remember that we're all part of the one great I am. And as human, my belief system is as human form blinks in and out, spirit always continues. My spirit never disappears. It's all part of the one I am. And that's, I can collectively tap into that larger spirit for guidance and intuition and strength and collective consciousness. And so there's never, for me personally, there's never this sense that this human manifestation is, well, that's not true. Sometimes I forget this I am human manifestation is always connected to the greater I am.
Yes.
And so, in the absence of remembering that, you can feel lonely or alone or fearful. But for me, when I remember I'm part of the greater I am, that's where it all comes from me.
Beautiful. Yes. And I like to think of it myself and as a wave, because the drop can seem separate too. So, but you can't take a wave out of the ocean. But yes, absolutely. I love that analogy. Yeah, I know. I love your analogy and metaphor. Absolutely. All right, Ryan, we have Anita.
Yes, we do have Anita. Wow, that was psychic. All right, Anita, would you like to go ahead and mute yourself and join us?
And thanks, Ryan. Good morning, everybody. So in this particular topic, right, I am one of those who grew up with, a God out there. And when I moved into religious science, what I discovered for me is that it's not out there, but it's an indwelling presence, because God is the very breath that breathes me every time I inhale. And so, as such, as an indwelling presence, it's closer than my hands and feet. It is who I am, and when I come to learn and understand that indwelling presence within me, then I begin to live from the within to the without, instead of all of that stuff out there affecting me, right? I can just come from that centered place. The key here, of course, when you're in the middle of stuff, is remembering that truth. So for me, it is just a matter of something out there. No, it's right here, present always. And no matter where I go, being the very breath I breathe, it cannot be separate from me ever.
Thank you, Anita. Yeah, and like Shauna was saying, I think each of us, we have to remember. And it's a constant remembering. I think there are very few people that move through life not needing to remember, when stuff happens, or when great things happen too. It doesn't have to be negative. Sometimes great things happen and I have to remember. Wow. That's because I am that I am. I am the wave in the ocean. I am the drop in the ocean. I am, the presence, indwelling presence is the very breath, as near as my breath right here to speak to everything that you've each said. And Willie has her hand up and needs a mic.
I'm Willie, and for me, it's a freedom. It's freedom from thinking that there's someone out there judging me, or that there's someone out there that's going to punish me if I don't do it the right way or at the right time. And I am free to choose for myself. And it is a huge, huge responsibility. And I think that's what scares people the most, is that responsibility, that you're responsible for your life. Nobody else is doing it. And that presence is within, moving through you, just like your heart beats on its own. It's there. It's beating your heart. It's just automatic. And if you know the rules, and if you know the law and how the law works, and you're following that, then it's freedom to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I loved how you said it's scary, right? And it made me think of, when we're teenagers and before, but let's just go to teenage years. We couldn't wait to be an adult, right? We couldn't wait to be an adult and be on our own. And oh my gosh, when I'm on my own, life is going to be so good. And then what happens? Oh, we're an adult and we're on our own. And it's scary, isn't it? Now we're responsible for paying the bills and getting the work or whatever it is, right? And yet that's how we have a greater expression. Life falls forward. We must move from teenage to adulthood. I believe that is the impulse of life going all the way back to what Ross started with, humanity, we're sort of not even in our terrible twos yet. If we look at it, Homo sapiens have not been around much on this planet compared to other things, right? And so we must keep falling forward if we hold the vision for that. Yes, we've messed up and been destructive, and consciously and unconsciously. And we must adult ourselves at some point and take responsibility for our thoughts, our actions, and our beliefs. Yeah. And we're seeing this with, quite frankly, there's some of the forms, some of the more stricter forms of religion are starting to crumble more and more and more because they're not holding. And as humanity awakens and evolves, it's having to rewrite itself, right?
But that belief that there's something out there that's making these judgments and these decisions for you, and taking I'm just gonna pray that God will step in here.
Yes.
People are afraid of putting all that responsibility on themselves.
Many people are.
I think that scares people more than anything about this whole thing that we do here. Is the responsibility.
I'd rather give it over to God and hope and pray.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Turn it.
Wow,
over
this is good. You got anybody?
Turn it over to something else.
You got anybody, or am I going in here?
We're going to go here.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Darlene. What this brings up for me is I'm scared excited because I remember when I first came here, I said, I don't think I knew what I was saying, but I said, I'm here for the party. And that's what I'm excited about, creating my own party. Because over the years, taking responsibility always meant something painful that we had to suffer to gain. Now we don't have to do that. We get to choose. We get to paint our own canvas. And I find myself that when I don't know what to do or I feel stuck, I tear the paper up and start with a new sheet. Because I start with a new sheet of paper, a blank canvas. Because I'm learning here at CSLDallas that to choose words of falling forward, that life is always moving forward, and the assurance that we have that spirit is moving. We're always creating, we're always moving. So now I choose to paint a lovelier picture.
I love that. Very good. Nice. So, one more thought on this, made in the image and likeness, okay? And everything has DNA inside it of its, let's say, wherever it comes from. Okay, I'm gonna only lightly touch on the word parent, but because we get trapped there too. But there's a creator, an egg, whatever it is, a bud, everything has the DNA of its creator, where it's coming from. The DNA in that seed or the offspring. And so that DNA is in the kitten, therefore it must grow up as a cat. It does not grow up as a dog. All right, the DNA of the kitten does not grow up to be a tiger. It grows up to be a cat. So life, if we look at it like a metaphor, life is reproducing itself. And life is reproducing itself in everything. And life has reproduced itself, God, the universal presence, right? It has reproduced itself as a self-conscious being as us. Doesn't mean that we're the only ones in the universe, perhaps, that the universal presence has reproduced itself as a self-conscious being, but it absolutely has in us, right? So look at it that way. The DNA must be in you because it is in you, and so just like the kitten is the cat, we are life itself. That's our DNA. And to be self-conscious, which means we can take responsibility, we can understand how the creative process works, the universal law works, we can choose our thoughts, we can choose what it is we hold, we can rewire, rethink, reform in a mold. That's the great news. We do not have to stay where we've been. We don't have to remain a teenager. We can adult ourselves and understand that this is how life works. So, what does it mean to know that one has the DNA of the infinite reality and that you can be aware of that fact? Question number 2 for the Sunday morning. Any thoughts?
That's pretty powerful.
Willie says that's pretty powerful. There's someone over here.
Question.
Yes. What does it mean to know that you have the DNA of the infinite reality and you can be aware of that? What does it mean to you? Wow, I have the DNA of the infinite reality.
Infinite reality being
God,
creation.
whatever you choose to
Life.
call it, life itself, the thing itself, as Ernest Holmes would call it. Limitless, Shawnette says. What? Anybody online? What does it mean to you to know that we are the DNA of the limitless expression? Love. Showing up as that boundless love. That's our DNA. It's in us. It is us. How about infinite intelligence? How about wholeness? How about creativity? What's the DNA of it? How does it show up? Like the thing that knows how to, I don't know what's coming through, I don't know why, create hedgehog. Wow, that is an incredible little thing. Knows how to, as a little bitty thing, knows how to ball itself up, protect it, but if you just look at cute little nose, look at all the various things. Just this one planet in this one solar system. Goodness knows how many other self-conscious DNA beings there are out there in the universe. Some might be giggling at us. Yep, they're still in their terrible twos. They will make it to be a teenager soon. There's hope, because the DNA is them.
That's why they're watching us.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay, so well, here's one more thing that he goes into. I'll finish this little section for Peter here. So y'all start maybe with the new chapter. He says, if we truly study the nature of humankind, then we shall have delved into the real nature of God, or first cause. I just love that name for God. From which all human beings spring. Again, gender-neutral language. As we have found that we are each the threefold in our nature, we must deduce that God is threefold in her nature, i.e. that God is spirit or self-knowingness. Self-knowingness. God is law and the action, right? So action, law, and God is result, form, body. That's the threefold nature of God, right? This is the inner teaching of, quote, the Trinity. God, as self-knowing spirit, means the divine being whom has always thought of and believed in, the being to whom we have prayed and to whom we have adored. God is law, means the way in which the Spirit works. And law, in this sense, would be the servant of the Spirit. It must do what the command is, right? God is body means the manifestation of the Spirit. So, he ends this chapter 2, on the Trinity of Being. So this Trinity of Being appears to run through all nature and all life. So he's saying, not just in humankind, but in all of life, the Trinity's running through it. For instance, there's electricity, the way it works, and its result. Electricity, cause. The law of it, the law of electricity, the way it works, and its results, which is light or motive power. There is the seed, the creative medium of the soil and the plant. Turn it as we may, we are confronted with the necessity of a Trinity of Being. Throughout the ages, this Trinity has been taught. Every great religion and every great spiritual philosophy has taught this Trinity, right? Father, Son, and Holy Ghost is the Christian Trinity, or Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? It is the thing, the way it works, and what it does. That's ours. This thing is absolute intelligence. The way it works is absolute law, and what it does is the result manifestation. The action of the thing itself is what the Bible calls the Word, absolute intelligence. So the Trinity is, in a lot of the religions, look at Hinduism, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, right? We look into, in the Trinity, we fall into, on one spectrum, way over here, and then I got to end on this, so I'm just going to tee it up for Petra. On one end of the spectrum is creationism, right? And that's, God said, let there be light. I want dinosaur bones, whatever. There's creationism. Over here, way on the other end of the spectrum, is scientific randomness. The Big Bang. Just these particles just decided to start bopping into themselves. And we, science of mind, land in the middle, in sort of the middle camp. We would call it, a lot of people would call it intelligent design. Sort of where we fall, right? There's infinite intelligence to the whole thing. So, but not with there being a person or a deity. That's where we're ending, right? Or some being up in the sky. That its nature is infinite intelligence. So, life, this divine impulse, actually knows how to do all things. We are the DNA of it. We are the wave. We are the drop in the ocean. And so everything that it does, so shall we. Greater things than me, ye shall do. We just thought he was talking about himself. No, greater things than thee, ye shall do. I think it's pretty great that we can create in the exact same way that life creates. Spirit, soul, body, the way it works. We'll see you next week, Ryan, and see you in the sanctuary. We're going to talk about mental equivalence, the way it works, the big three, and Dr. Petra will be back with you next Sunday.
All right.
Bye for now.